Hi, this is Don at Ridge Engineering. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk very quickly about a question that we get all the time, which is, does your software run under Windows 7? The short answer is yes, of course it does, and there's no real serious problems running under Windows 7. But there are a couple of things that we've learned that could make the software run a little bit better. So I'm going to do two things in this tutorial. First, I'm going to quickly go through the settings that we recommend to run our software under Windows 7, either 32-bit or 64-bit versions. And then I'm going to go back and go over it a little slower in more detail for people that are interested in what's actually going on under the hood. So if all you care about is getting it to work, you'll just watch the first part. If you want to understand a little bit about what's happening, you can watch the whole thing. I'm going to use PC Warrants as an example, but this also is true for PC Travel, PC TAS, PC VIS, any of the software that we write around here. So when you install the software, the installation software will generate an icon on your desktop, and in this case it's called PC Warrants, and it has a little traffic signal. And normally you would run the software by double clicking on that icon. If you have Windows 7, and especially if you have Windows 7 64-bit, we recommend you do one thing first, and that is right click on the icon, select Properties, and then select Compatibility. This brings up a series of options, and click Run this program in compatibility mode and select whatever your first option is, which normally is Windows XP Service Pack 3. And also check Run this program as an administrator. We found that if you make these two settings, then basically there's no problem running the software under any conditions. And if anybody has a good reason to say, no, you shouldn't do either of these things, or you shouldn't recommend them, please let us know. But if you do this, then you won't have any problems running the software. You can have your data files anywhere you want, and the program will work just fine. So you set those two, and then you can get going. Now, if you have a large monitor, like I have a 24-inch monitor, although you can't tell that from this tutorial, sometimes some programs will look a little fuzzy when there's really no reason for that. And if that's the case, and you don't see it all the time, it seems to depend on the monitor you have and probably the video card you have and maybe some settings in Windows. We all know that there's millions of settings in Windows. So if you see that the program seems a little bit fuzzy, we found that clicking on this Disable Display Scaling on high DPI settings makes a big difference. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate what that looks like in this tutorial. It doesn't translate into the software that we use to show this stuff. But if you're seeing that any 32-bit program that you're running, not just ours, seems fuzzy for no obvious reason, what's happening is the video software is making everything a little bit bigger to fit your big monitor, but in doing that, it's blowing up everything, including the fonts, which make them look a little fuzzy. So if you check this Disable Display Scaling on high DPI settings, it won't do that. It may look a little smaller on your screen, but things will be a lot tighter and a lot clearer, and in general will probably look better. So that's only if you need to use that setting, if you see that the software seems fuzzy. And again, it's not just for our software, it's for any software that you run on your computer. And this run as in compatibility mode and run as administrator is also true for lots of other software that we run. We tend to run almost any 32-bit program in compatibility mode, and we haven't found any issues whatsoever. So, and it makes some other problems go away. So hit apply, Hit OK. And then those settings are stored, and the next time you run PC warrants, you'll want to make problems. When you double click on it, you will get a message from the user account control saying, do you want to do this? And just say yes, and there's no problem with that message, and then it brings you up into the software. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that. All right, so if that's all you need to know, then you don't need to watch the rest of this tutorial. If you're curious about what we're talking about and what it means, then you can go ahead and listen in. Okay, so if you're staying with me, the problem fundamentally is that Windows 7 and to a lesser extent Windows Vista, if you're still running that, has what's called user access control. And Windows, in their infinite wisdom, wants you to do things their way and only their way. And one of the things they do not want you to do is to write any files to the C drive, especially to the C drive and anything in the program files folder. And so what they do is, if you want to write, if your software is trying to write to a folder that is in the C program files structure, which a lot of data files are, in our software the default value is underneath the program file, and the program file is in the program files part of the C drive. This user access control that's built into Windows 7 will not just give you an error message and refuse to do what you're asking it to do. It will save the file, but it won't save the file in the folder where you think it's saving it. It will create a virtual file and put that up in an area that it considers safe. Now, in this case, I tried to save a file in PC warrants, and when I went and I saved the file, and when I went to copy that file to another drive to send to a customer or send to somebody else, it wasn't there. Although I could run PC warrants, open that study, and the study was there, and everything seemed to work. When I closed PC warrants and went back to look for that file, it wasn't there. Very confusing. We get this phone call every few weeks from people saying, I can't find my studies. And so by now we know exactly what's going on. Now, Windows creates a folder in the user section of your computer. And if you look at the top of the screen here, in my case it's users, and then it's in my user account, Don. Then there's a folder called app data, and then under that there's a folder called local, and then under that there's a folder called virtual store, and then under that there's the program files x86, which is the folder where all the programs for 32-bit applications are stored. And then under that are a whole list of folders. One of them is PC warrants, and in that are my data files. They're the preferences files that are stored in PC warrants, the volume data, and the multi-way stop studies. And so they weren't in the C program files PC warrants structure anymore. They've been moved up here. But the software, Windows, knows that's where they are. And so when you go into PC warrants and try to open a study, it goes here and the study is there, so everything seems to be working. Very confusing. And it's called user access control, and Windows is doing this to protect us from ourselves. You can argue whether that makes any sense or not, but that's what's happening. So if you're looking for your files, can't find them, and again, this applies to any 32-bit software, not just PC warrants or PC travel or whatever. So it's if you're looking for your files, then look in users, or username, then app data, local, virtual store. Now, if you want to know more about this, more than you ever really want to know. Let's see, it's here. If you Google user account control data redirection, one of the top 2 or 3 results will be this page. And again, it's a little bit hard to see in this tutorial structure, but there's a very long, very detailed article that explains everything that's going on and a lot more. And so there's a lot of information there, and it will lead you to other places. So if you really want to understand what this user account control data redirection is all about, this is a good source. So again, the solution to avoid this is to change the compatibility mode to run in Windows XP Service Pack 3. What this effectively does is it disables the user access control data redirection. So it will happily write to the C program files structure, and as near as we can tell, without any repercussions whatsoever. And setting the privilege level to run this program as an administrator doesn't seem to be all that necessary for most people, but it doesn't seem to hurt anything. And even though you normally don't want to give administrative rights to the people using the software, in this case, there's really nothing they can do with it. It only gives administrative rights for this program, and we have some anecdotal evidence that it seems to clean up some potential problems, even if you're running it in XP compatibility mode. So that is probably a lot more than you ever wanted to know about user access control, but it explains why, if you're running software in Windows 7 or even in Vista, sometimes it's behaving in an odd way, especially if you can't find your data files. So set it to run in compatibility mode, set it to run as an administrator. If the images are a little fuzzy, try this checkbox, and you might find that the programs that you're using look a lot better and run a lot better. Okay, thanks a lot.